Good morning and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Santa Clarita In-Home Care and Advanced Audiology. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr. Jean Dorio,
on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And speaking of quality of life, our guest today is Kim Wahl, and she's an alternative medicine advocate. Welcome,
Hello,
Kim.
guys.
Welcome
Good
back.
to see you.
Good to see you.
And what are we talking about today?
You know what? I kind of wanted to go off what we talked a little bit about last time about Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's, the disease.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we were talking a lot about, why has this become such an issue and some of the things we're having. And one of the things we want to kind of look at, and I brought information about, is what we call candida. And candida has become something in our society that's an epidemic. And when we think about the way the body works and we look at like children with behavioral problems, a lot of times if we look at the intestinal tract or the gut, that's where we see the problem to begin with. We have an overgrowth of something, in this case yeast, which can cause many, many, many health issues.
Yes.
So that's why we want to kind of look at that. So as we get older, you might say, well, I'm not taking any antibiotics, so I wouldn't have a yeast overgrowth. But it is a pandemic in the United States. It's very prevalent. But a lot of times people are getting things like antibiotics through their food. So they're getting it in meats, they're getting it in dairy products where the animals are getting the antibiotics. And so we are getting antibiotics, not necessarily taking them, but kind of getting a little bit of it in our diet every day. So it's kind of allowing that bacteria overgrowth or that bacteria balance to get out of balance.
That's very interesting. Who would have thought about that?
Well, that's
Kim does.
Kim does.
Yes.
But Kim, not to get off topic, but tell us about what your thoughts are on antibiotics in our food right now, our food chain. Because in the United States, antibiotics are used, and everybody thinks it's used in the medical field by doctors. Mm-hmm. But I understand the statistics show that 80% of use is not by doctors, but it's in our food chain, especially with animals, to plump them up.
Exactly, to plump them up. It has nothing to do with health benefits. It actually shows that. So look at our society as well. We have an obesity problem. Why do we have an obesity problem? Could it be the fact that people are being fed these antibiotics through the meat, through the dairy products where these animals are getting it, or however, that way? And it is affecting their metabolism in their bodies as well. But you're right. And most of it is given to animals because they get a couple $100 extra at slaughter. And a lot of the toxins are found in the fat marble of meats. Mm-hmm. So depending on the cut of meat would kind of depend on the dose of antibiotic you're getting.
But everybody, I just hear it every day. And I think there was a huge article last week discussing how doctors have to make sure they do not prescribe antibiotics inadvertently, that you have to make sure that what you are giving antibiotics for is correct and limit it because of drug resistance.
100%.
But I saw that article and I said, why are they putting the pressure on the doctors when the meat industry should be the ones where the finger should be pointing?
Well, I think in the big picture, they don't care because you're going to come to them one way or another. So you're either going to be a consumer of that or you're going to be a consumer of the products. But long term, we're going to develop dis-ease in our body because this is going on a certain level. So you're going to come to them for an antidepressant, or you're going to come to them for a acid reflux medicine, or you're going to come to them for a bowel issue because long term, these things have been tearing away at people's systems. And you're right. It's sad when it's done for only the purpose of money, to plumping the animals up to get a couple $100 extra out of them. So it is that. So is it the meat lobbyists or the drug lobbyists who have the better advantage here? I don't think it really matters because long term, it's so through our system we don't even think about it anymore.
But if I choose not to eat meat, which I do, I'll eat chicken, but I won't eat red meat. Does chicken have it? Yes, they do.
Yes.
But the other side of the coin, if I'm giving an antibiotic, I'm giving 500 milligrams 3 times a day, and we know that dosing, and then you're on it for 7 days, and then you're off. Mm-hmm. Whereas with the food supply, you don't know when you're getting it, and you don't know when you're getting your dosing. And I'm not sure how appropriate that is. And that's what should be frowned upon.
Yes, and you're right. When somebody comes into the doctor, and I think the pendulum is shifting because, mothers used to come in and people would come in and say, just give me something to make it go away. And a lot of times, like, you're dealing with a virus, it might not even be anything bacterial. And theoretically, if you thought about the dosage of which you give an antibiotic for X amount of days, it kind of, if you thought about it, it would kind of make sense to do a culture and in 24 hours call them with a prescription of what actually would work for them as opposed to just prescribing things. Because I know as an O blood type, antibiotics that are high in, or grown on mold content, so like penicillin, they're actually neurotoxins to O's. And it's very interesting because when my grandmother was in her last years, 98 to 100, she was in a facility. And, they would just give those things willy-nilly. It was really kind of sad. And it was really crazy how it would affect her neurologically when they would give her an antibiotic. And, I don't know because it's not something I've ever consumed in probably almost 35 years now, 40 years, what the side effects of those are. But it actually affected her neurologically. So again, we think about this. If we're getting a little bit of this in our diet every single day, and, maybe you're somewhere where you don't have control over your food, and we wonder why is our society becoming obese and why is our society becoming sterile? Well, why is our society having neurological issues both in our very young and our very old? That's not normal. That's not the norm. Something is wrong in our chain, and food is a big part of it.
Do you think
the meat, the beef, the pigs, the chicken.
Pigs are really dirty animals to eat, though. They got a lot of antibiotics and a lot of drugs in them.
Well, what about fish?
Well, fish is going to be one of those things. It's relevant to the world in which we live in. Okay, if you had a beautiful trout pond in your backyard that you knew where that water and that was, go for it. Out into the real world, it's going to be an issue. And interesting enough, one of the reasons why candida also gets out of control in our bodies is because of heavy metal. Candida is actually trying to do us a favor by binding onto that heavy metal. So a lot of times when people have yeast issues or candida issues, and most people think of very, athlete's foot or vaginal stuff, there's a lot of symptoms that go with candida overgrowth. But when we have that heavy metal, it can really allow that to grow. So when we're eating things like that, fish from the ocean, you're going to, how often do you eat it? And what do I do? Like we discussed last time, what can I do to detoxify myself? Beautiful thing is with homeopathics, Kim Wahl makes a formula called heavy metal detox. And I'll be honest, it's something I do periodically through the year because the air is full of heavy metals coming from cars and things. And we don't even know. I mean, I have one mercury filling left in my mouth. That's outgassing metals into my system. I had all the rest removed. I have one left to go. But it's interesting where we get those things in from, people that use deodorant that has aluminum in it and people that use, you don't realize it.
So what you really have to do is look at every single label.
Well, look at what you're putting.
Everything you're buying.
Well, look at what you're putting in your body or on your body.
That's right.
Do you care? I care. I want to live my years as a healthy human being, not needing a blood pressure or a digestive enzyme or an antacid or things like that. Or even looking at the other way. I mean, flip the television on, which I've unplugged from, but it's all drug commercials.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all drug commercials, and that's what they're promoting. Why can't we promote grow a garden? Put some cayenne pepper. Well, we know that. Put some cayenne pepper in your body. I mean, but we can do what we can do. And we don't want to become overwhelmed or discouraged. We can do what we can do. And that's as simple as maybe having a couple pots in your yard where you grow cilantro. Cilantro is one of the best things to eat for heavy metal. So I use it all the time. I chop it up and put it in my salad fresh. If you do a smoothie, you can put it in a smoothie. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can actually get it in a liquid herbal tincture and just put it in something. Make it simple. That's why I always tell people, try to make it as simple as you can. Because if we try to make it, if we look at the bigger, it can become overwhelming. What do I eat? Where does it come from? Well, ask when you go into the thing, where's this fish from? Where's this beef from?
Yeah, you don't even know when they say it's caught here or there. I mean,
you're right. You're 100% right.
Kim, I just don't believe them.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Off the coast of the Minamata Bay, where there was a big mercury poisoning in Japan. Yeah,
exactly. And that's again where the FDA was created to protect the people. And now the FDA protects the farmers or the
that's right.
producers. And again, those are some of the weird shifts that have happened in America, and we've lost control. How has GMOs gotten so prevalent in our diet? You want to know why? Again, we do the money sign. That's why. It's all about money. We're going to get you one way or another.
Are there GMOs in Europe?
Nope.
And why is that?
Because they said we don't want them.
Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
There
Yes.
are no GMOs in Europe. You know why? Because they know that it's dangerous to them.
That's right. That's
so
right.
they know
How
it's toxic.
interesting.
Like the
How
beekeepers, when they
interesting.
went and did a stand against it because they were seeing their bees. These people are beekeepers their whole life, all of a sudden seeing their bees die. The colony collapse. What's going on? And the research was done, the information was given to them, and they gave it to the government. The government says, we don't want that pesticide anymore in our country. We're not going to use it because it's killing the bees. We do not want GMO products growing in our land because it's causing this to happen. And guess what? They didn't. They got rid of it, and within a year, their bees came back. And I think that's we need to look at the simplicity of things like bees and animals. We have animals in our society that have diseases. Perfect example. I got a chocolate Labrador who's 15 years old. I've had Labradors my whole life. Since the first day I got married, when I was married to my husband, we've had labs our whole life. This lab has fatty tumors on her that are horrible. Well, if you look at the literature that Monsanto's themselves did, of course, they stopped the literature that they showed us at 90 days with no change, but the literature at 120 days showed all animals grew these tumors. They lived their lives with these massive tumors. Now, I feed my dog raw food, but I did use a natural brand of dog cookies from a store I won't name. And I have a feeling that the grains in those natural cookies were genetically modified grains. Because that's the only thing in her diet that wasn't controlled. She does fresh greens, she does raw meat, and she does some grains.
Did you subtract them out to see what
I took them away.
How long ago was that?
It's been a few years now, but where I really
she
saw
still have
it,
the
she still
fatty
has them. They won't go away.
No, once
They
you
won't
get
lose them. But where I saw the
Did she get any
change
more,
is my male, her son. He was starting to develop them, and I stopped the cookies, and he hasn't developed any more. So he has a couple on him. But again, we don't think about when we look at things like cancer or disease in the body, what causes that cell to malfunction? That cell has a nucleus, and it has proteins and fats and things that allow that cell to know I live for X amount of days and I die because that's my life expectancy. We see in cancer that cell forgets to die. Well, what's happening? We have to look at all these genetically modified organisms. We have to look at the chemicals that are putting a toxic load on the DNA, damaging the DNA so it can't repair. And a lot of this does come through the food base. But again, if we make a stand, just like 15 years ago, we didn't have organic stuff in a grocery store. Now we do. So the beauty is we need to say, we don't want those things. We don't want to have genetically grown salmon in a pond. I would take my chances with the wild salmon over genetically modified salmon in a pond because there's no nutritional value in that meat. It's dead meat, in my opinion. I would rather take the wild stuff that might have a little bit of mercury in it, take some homeopathics, maybe do that salmon with some cilantro dressing on it, and counteract the fact that it might have heavy metal in it. Because our world is a polluted place, but we can consume things to help us detoxify.
And it's too bad we can't measure everything either.
No, it is, and it's sad that we can't have. It's sad that we can't have our FDA have our back and test this stuff. I was reading this thing. It was a crazy article about honey and how much the honey that's imported into our country can be only. It was 55-gallon drums, and it said honey, blah, 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 in different languages, and it only had to be 1% honey to be called honey.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
And
is
that's
that like the Parmesan cheese?
Yeah, pretty much. So think about this, because this whole thing was talking about if you wanted honey is if you think
amazing.
about it, it's a very pricey little commodity of what it takes
is.
to do. And go in the grocery store and look at the shelves. There's not that much going on with producing. There's something else on those shelves that they call honey. So again, it's about understanding. We want to know what that, and it's really sad how much money is being spent to block our labeling in the United States of America so we can't see what's in our food.
Yeah.
And how is that? How is it as you as an industry exactly can create something with lobbyists and everybody paying for it, and us as consumers can't say, wait a minute, I want to know what's in my food. I mean, as a let's say a shop owner here in town, I couldn't go and say, I'm going to make up this lovely batch of something. Here you go, and I'm going to sell it. They'd shut me down. Well, what's in it? How much of this? How much of that? Has it been tested? Well, we know a lot of that stuff isn't. But again, what can we go back to? We can go back to making sure we're doing good water. We're doing things to hydrate the body, good fats to go in there and protect the cells, good proteins. And like I said, it's not about quantity of protein, like you were saying, Barb. It's not quantity of protein. It's quality.
That's
you know?
right.
I can have a small piece of something, and it might be, X, Y. I mean, even think about it with the whole radiation and what's in the ocean with, the fish in Japan and everything. We really don't know what our West Coast is like, and we know the exactly. We know down in the Texas, Louisiana coast, they've had oil issues there. Every place has had an issue.
That's true. Well, I heard on the radio coming over here today, just briefly, and I didn't listen to it long enough to figure out what it was. But there's somewhere in the United States where the drinking water is all brown again.
It's here.
It was here. That was in Watts. Was it
it's in
Watts?
Watts.
In the
really?
school in downtown LA. Yeah.
And what the authority
Whoa.
said was, there's nothing wrong with it. You can drink it. I think that sounds echoes of Flint.
Whoa.
What gets me is we as taxpayers, we pay the money into the system, and again, we see these people who take these crazy salaries that work for these industries, and they're not fixing the infrastructure. Something like water is something so simple, and again, even water is got antibiotics and drugs in it today too, which is a really sad thing, that even the water that we take for granted that comes out of our tap, which is much cleaner than some waters, but it in itself is laden with chemicals. But again, that goes back to just we've become a society of pill poppers. I want my problem to go away, and I don't want to look at the fact of what food is in front of me. I'm eating this garbage, and it's creating health issues for me, and I don't want to change this garbage, which the food industry is great that you're not wanting to change their food. And we keep taking the drugs to make those symptoms stay in a balance.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when you hear on the TV or on the radio talking about this fantastic new medicine that's come out, that it will cure this and cure this and cure this, and you won't have any pain here, there, and everywhere. However,
Here are the side effects, and this is
you could
how much
die.
it
there
costs.
are certain side effects that you have to be aware of, and one of them is possible cancer. And boy, I really started listening to it because I'm certain that that's what gave me the cancer.
And you look at the things like that, and we don't. I guess we've kind of become lazy because we think that the government or whoever is taking care of us. And I think back in the day that might have been, I'm sorry, we were sold out back in the early 1900s, so I don't know when it really was, actually, never mind. But beyond that, we need to look at what we're putting in our body and why. Even something as simple as a pain reliever over the counter. Do you realize how damaging to the kidneys those are? Now, you might be able to do something a lot more natural like bromelain or turmeric or boswellia, which aren't going to hurt your kidneys, that can give you pain relief. Because when I had my place out here, I had customers tell me, Kim, I can't take pharmaceutical pain medications and I'm having my knee replaced. That's a painful procedure. But yet we could use natural things that dealt with inflammation, dealt with pain, dealt with nerve issues, and in the same sense, were tissue healers. Well, let me tell you, over-the-counter pain medication aren't tissue healers. They're kidney destroyers. So why not look at it from another point of view? And that's the beauty of the world today is you have that ability if you want it. Because, I kind of realize sometimes when I talk and people kind of give me that glazed over look. Really, I'm serious, guys.
Yes.
But you know what? I'm healthy. I'm not on pharmaceuticals. I live the life I want to live. The people around me are healthy. So something in that my children are healthy. We haven't had antibiotics in my house, like I said, in 40 plus years. It's just not something we've done. And because I had another option that worked.
Yes.
And that's the beauty. When you see something that works, if I eat this and I feel better, and then I don't, and I choose to eat this, then that's my choice.
That's
You know?
very true. That's very
And if you
true.
want to be in that drug game and in that system where they're going to chop and cut and burn you as you poison your system, then kudos to you. I want to be the lady that's, 90 years old, out riding my horse, on my back 40, looking for the damn coyotes. I want a simple and be able to enjoy the things that we're meant to be. And I think the more close to the earth we get and look at the simplicity of stuff, because it's crazy how much we can't even fathom the electromagnetic frequencies, the EMFs, the food, the air, is so much. But we can be healthy. And I think the shift is happening. And I think people are waking up and saying, moms, like I said, it happened a few, years ago. We're tired of the antibiotics. We don't want this. Before it was no big deal. But we know the gut is our second brain. And if we damage that gut, what are we going to get long term as adults? We see, some of the effect with our kids. And a lot of these children that are getting help, they're starting in their gut and they're starting with their diet. People says, oh, well, whatever. No, I think the biggest issue with gluten is it's a GMO product.
That's
GMOs are going to give you two effects. They're either going to give you heavy pesticides in the food because they can 400% increase in sprayed pesticides on this stuff. Pesticides are neurological toxins as well as estrogens, or you're going to get the other effect, which GMOs create or get the tissues to grow pesticides in your own body. So if you've got a compromised gut and these pesticides get in there and then they can take hold, you can actually produce pesticides in your body, which is crazy.
That's
Exactly.
amazing. Well, let's continue this very interesting conversation in a moment.
Which started off as candida and went somewhere else.
Well, we have to take a break. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.